Welcome back to another episode. Unfortunately, in this episode, I have lost my voice, so I'll probably be talking over a lot of the rest of the video with a bit more information. But it is finally time to get our turbo set up. Oil feed, water feed lines for our turbo all bolted up onto our M50 engine in our E82. If you were here for the last episode, you would have seen us finishing off that turbo manifold. So that's all been welded up and bolted up now. So we will start fabricating all the lines and pretty much the life support system for the turbo. And then we can get back onto electricals and plumbing in the rest of the wiring.
In the previous video, we compared the differences between two turbos and decided that a Garrett 3582 turbo was the best suited for our application. So we started by figuring out where the turbo was going to be installed and built a turbo manifold to mount it. The turbo we used required to be rebuilt, so we purchased a new core and all the fittings we require to get the job done.
So starting off, we've gone to Speedflow, and they've been very gracious in helping us out and giving us some wholesale pricing for all of our fittings. So here you'll see our waterline fittings, our oil feed fittings, oil feed line, a whole bunch of seals that came with a new cartridge for the turbo. The new cartridge does have a billet front on it, but it also is a bush bearing, not a ball bearing. This is obviously the old turbo, and if I be quiet for just 1 second, you'll hear that those bearings are absolutely shot. I have pulled the turbo apart and cleaned the front cover to the best of my ability. One of the things that we will be doing is porting out the wastegate on the back of the turbo. These are renowned for having quite a small port on the back, so hopefully open that up just to give it a little bit more flow and a little bit more control over boost when it comes under full load, hopefully not spiking the boost too much, because again, this is going to be on a drift car. It's going to be getting a lot of throttle input.
First, we start by preparing the new turbo cartridge with all the fittings required for the water lines and the oil lines. I have always found the easiest way is to use the banjo to AN adapters, as they are quite cheap and most manufacturers use banjo fittings as standard. Once it is adapted to the standard AN format, you can select any type of fitting you require. For the water lines, we are going with a barb fitting. This allows any type of rubber hose to be used. Just keep in mind, as the turbo gets quite hot, you want to be using high temperature lines to prevent any issues. For the oil feed, we are using an inverted flare adapter, as it is regularly used in all Garrett turbos, making it very easily available. This will adapt the oil feed to a -4 Teflon line. Over to the other side of the turbo to get the water fitting on. The turbo we are using is water cooled, so of course we need an inlet and an outlet. Same process on this side, using the banjo bolt AN adapter, but this side is getting a 45-degree barb fitting. Oil feed to the turbo also requires a return line to the engine, so now we can address the oil drain. We have added a -8 fitting into the timing cover on the front of the engine so the oil can go back into the motor. Because this is a Garrett core, all the fittings you need are easily available from most suppliers such as Pirtek or Speedflow, or any store online. Here we are running into a problem where the standard bolts will not fit to secure the drain fitting to the bottom of the turbo. So the next option was to swap the bolts out for Allen key screws. These did fit a little better, however they were still touching against the oil drain. so it was over to the lathe where I was able to machine the Allen screws to create the clearance they needed. Once the drain was screwed on, we added a -8 AN adapter fitting and the core was ready to have the front and rear housings installed. These turbos are known to overboost when the front compressor is changed due to a small and irregular port on the exhaust housing. For a standard application they are fine, however for our application we need to port and smoothen out the wastegate port. We could go to an external wastegate, however for the ease of packaging we are keeping it internal. Next we get to the first stage of clocking the turbo. Temporarily fitting the exhaust housing, we fit the cartridge to get the perfect angle. We want the oil feed line to be as close to vertical as possible to allow the lubrication to work properly and the oil to drain correctly. It can be a little bit off, but in all my years I have always stuck to this way of installing turbos and I have never had any issues. After marking the core, we take it back to the bench to start the assembly. We take all the fittings off and begin fitting the lock rings and hardware. It is a good idea to slowly do up the fasteners in a cross pattern, checking that the turbine wheel is not making any contact with the housing. Once again, we need to change the hardware to make clearance for our very large oil drain. So we modify another Allen screw and finish tightening all the bolts. With that done, we can focus on the front side of the turbo. The backing plate goes into place with a rubber seal and a snap ring, a big snap ring that is extremely hard to compress. You can buy a tool to make this process a lot easier, and before you ask, the standard circlip remover will not work. The spring is so strong that your standard tool will just bend. Keeping true to my channel, if we can make it, we don't have to buy it. So a pair of pliers with a few nails welded to the tips was created, and after 30 attempts, the backing plate is on. We needed to use some multi-grips to get the tension on the spring, but now it's job done. Time for the front cover. We want to fit this in the standard location and add all the fittings so we can check all the clearances. Because we are using the internal wastegate, there is a little complexity and we cannot just put the housing on however we like, as the bolts need to line up. We head over to the car to test fit the turbo and find that although we have the right clearances, the turbo outlet is not in a desirable location. We took the turbo back to the bench and changed the location of the outlet and then bolted in place for the final time. The most important part for the longevity of a turbo is good oil supply. This engine never came with a turbo from the factory, so we needed to come up with a custom way to create an oil feed and oil drain. The drain was quite easy as we placed a bung in the timing cover for the oil to return back into the engine. The oil feed is a little more complicated. First, we need to locate somewhere we can access the oil supply. Seeing as we have variable valve timing on this engine, there is a line which comes off the back of the oil filter housing where we can access the oil. To do this, we can drill a hole into the banjo fitting and tap a thread. Another reason why I love the factory banjo fitting so much. We take the banjo fitting over to the lathe and we can start drilling the hole required. First, we punch the center point, then begin to drill the hole. Next, we start increasing the size until it is ready to receive the tap. Using the drill head on the lathe, we hold the tap to make sure it is at 0 degrees and turn the lathe head until it starts to naturally pull the tap inwards. Then we slowly finish the tapping off by hand and make sure the fitting fits into the new hole we have created. We test fit the fitting to make sure it is going in far enough and then test fit it on the car.
That banjo bolt goes in there. Then we have obviously the Vanos is now connected. Coming off that Vanos is this little piece at the end there. Well, not little piece, our dash 4 fitting. Then we can just run a little 90. Like that. That's going to need to face upwards. And then we're going to get our line and pretty much just connect the dots from here to over here. But I'm guessing that this video is starting to get a little bit long, so I'm going to have to leave that one for the next one. So if you love the content and you love BMWs and want to continue seeing this car getting built and then hopefully getting drifted, then by all means hit one of those subscribe button, hit that bell so you know when I put up a next video, and if you could definitely hit a like, and that seriously helps me a lot. So thank you very much for watching and making it all the way to the end, and we'll see you in the next one.